here's my phone number. It's not my cell, but if you leave a message, there's my email, so we can get in touch that way. See,
a lot on the agenda. I'm sorry. I know. All right, good evening. Thank you very much for coming to Eddystone. To the United Aerospace Workers Local 1069, we'd like to thank the UAW 1069 for having us here. The sponsors of the evening are Eddystone Democratic Committee, Interborough Progressives, Ridley Democratic Committee, Ridley Township Committee, and Chester Democratic Committee. Thank you to our Democratic candidates for coming tonight and for all of our committee people coming. It's extremely important to hear all these folks up here so that we can think about the candidates' issues and be ready for the upcoming primary election and the general election in November. For mechanics here, we have 3 questions. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. There will be a warning card at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which Jason Silverblack has over here. And at 3 minutes, there will be a red card. When you have the red card, please finish your sentence, and we'll go to the next candidate. As you say in school, put down your pencils, close the book. Actually, they don't say that anymore because you're taking the exam on the Chromebook, but that's okay. So please be respectful of the time because we have a lot to do tonight. What we'll do is we'll start over here on my right, you're the audience left, and we'll take each person in the order that they're seated. We didn't arrange the seating order, but that's how we'll do it. The second question, we have divided everybody up by random number, and so I'll read names, and then for the third question, we'll go from the other end of the table and come back this way. All right. Question number 1. Please state your name. This is very important. State your name because that's why you're here. Please state your name and tell us what specific characteristics you feel qualify you for the position on county council. And please be careful with the wire here.
Hello everyone, I am Elaine Schaefer and I want to thank you all for coming out tonight on this snowy, horrible weather on a Saturday night to hear us. I am from the Newtown Square section of Radnor, and I served as a commissioner there for 2 terms, and I served as president of that board for 3 of those years, 3 of the 8 years. I also ran for state representative for the 165th in 2016, and professionally I'm an attorney, and my job is as a executive director for a nonprofit organization and an environmentally focused one called the Schuylkill River Greenways. I'm going to tell you a piece of my background that I think is instructive to what I have to bring to county council. When I moved here to Delco 20 years ago, I became immediately involved in an open space preservation issue. There was a farm in my town, the last remaining piece of open space that was about 350 acres, and it was under the threat of development. So I co-founded the Radnor Conservancy. And with that group, I spearheaded an effort to get a $20 million open space bond referendum on the ballot. We won with 79% of the vote, and we were thrilled because the people had spoken and we were going to save this land. Well, the Board of Commissioners at that time did not see it that way, and they stalled. See, at that time in history, the Delco Republican machine controlled Radnor. As a result, we had a government that was run by the Republicans, for the Republicans, and for the Republican friends. It was unaccountable, it was non-transparent, and really unfair, and not representing the residents. Exactly what we have here in Delco right now. So I was frustrated, I wanted to get my project done, so I ran for office. That was 2010, and when I took my seat, I was the seat that flipped that board to put it under Democratic control. And when we took control, we completely revamped that government. We put in an entirely new management team, we changed the financial systems, we changed the staffing levels, we changed everything. And we made that government more accountable and more transparent, and more financially stable as well. It was really one of the most satisfying things I've done in my professional career. And fast forward to today in Delco, we are poised to be in exactly that same position. We are going to take these 3 seats, and we are going to be in the position to completely revamp this government. Now, to be sure, Kevin and Brian and the 5 Democrats who were elected in 2017 have done an excellent job of setting the stage for this work when we revamp this government. But it's going to be a tough transition, and we need people on that next board that have the experience and that have done this before and that have faced this Republican machine before. And I would love your support. I think that I have a lot to offer, and thank you very much.
My name is Larry Arata. I'm from Haverford Township, born and raised in Delaware County. Went to Haverford High School, played football, and then I went to Princeton University, where I also played football and got a degree in politics, and then pursued a 20-year career in software sales, and did well. And during those 20 years, I dedicated myself also to public service in my township, took on the Republican machine. We won our first state representative race there in 1992 ever. In that district, I was the campaign manager for that state rep. We're still there today. And we have took on a lot of issues, and some of them were open space issues and environmental issues and good government issues in Haverford Township. We lobbied, I formed a nonprofit, a bipartisan nonprofit called Citizens for Good Government that lobbied the commissioners. We went to every commissioners meeting from 97 to 2002. We lobbied them to put we lobbied the commissioners to put the insurance business out to competitive bid. And that saved the township millions of dollars and the taxpayers millions of dollars. We also made sure that the Haverford State Hospital property was preserved for open space, that none of those steep slopes, none of those floodplains, none of those wetlands, and the forest there were destroyed, that is preserved and pristine forever. Those are the kind of things that I want to do at County Council. I want to make sure that we bring good government to County Council, that we force them to put all the contracts out to an open bidding process, that we no longer have to pay what Brian Zydak coined as the corruption tax, that we pay more taxes than surrounding counties like Chester County and Montgomery County, Bucks County, because they don't adhere to good government practices in Delaware County. We need to force them to do so, and Brian and Kevin have embarrassed them. I've been to county council meetings this past year where they pointed out these contracts that are being renewed automatically without a bid need to be put out to a bid. And it's incumbent upon us, 3 of us that win, to do exactly that and bring good government and end this corruption tax in Delaware County. We also need to preserve open space. I've spoken along with members of Save Marple Green Space to save the former Don Guanella property in Marple Township this past year on numerous occasions. It's 160 acres of pristine old-growth forest that prevents flooding, that prevents traffic congestion, and we should not allow that to be cut down and overdeveloped, which is one of our main problems here in Delaware County. Had another major change in my career when I became a teacher 16 years ago. Took a $100,000 pay cut and have been serving the students of Philadelphia School District for the last 16 years, teaching and coaching. And then had another major change in my life when a year ago my son died of an overdose. And so my wife and I are in mourning, of course, but we're mourning with a mission. We formed a nonprofit, the Opioid Crisis Action Network. We researched best practices, and we want to put them into place into Delaware County government because we don't have best practices for those suffering from addiction in this county. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Moore, and I'm from the city of Chester. And just a little side note, I want to say, just to break the ice, that I graduated from the best high school in this area. No, that was not Chester High, it was St. James Catholic. Thank you very much. Of course, they closed after I graduated. Look, I'm the parks manager for the city of Chester, and in the summertime, I manage upwards of 80 people all throughout the city of Chester. I've sat in on union negotiation contracts with our local 312 union that our workers are a part of. I've also been a part of picking out, choosing and deciding which contracts should go to which construction companies for various construction projects in the Parks Department. I'm also the chairman of the city's planning commission, which oversees the construction projects and makes recommendations to mayor and council, and also to the zoning hearing board about various construction projects that come into the city. And under my tenure, we've approved Chicago Pizza Uno, which is the first chain restaurant in the city of Chester since like the 1970s. We've also approved that great new hotel that you see that's being built right there, right now, Calderwood Suites, which is looking very good, and it should be open in a couple of months. You know, you're going to need people on county council that really understand government. And I work in government, I understand government. I got my start when I ran for a school board for the William Penn School District School Board, which covered Darby and Yeadon and Upper Darby and a couple of other municipalities in there as well, where we had to decide whether or not to raise taxes or not. We were adamant that we never wanted to raise taxes, but sometimes there were things beyond our control, because we really had to fight with the Pennsylvania Department of Education over a lot of things, and we did everything that they asked us to do, and they still put a lot of stuff on us. So at times, against what we wanted to do, we probably did have to raise taxes, unfortunately. I'm dead set against raising taxes on the people of Delaware County. I think that people of Delaware County work hard. I think that we work hard for everything that we get, and the last thing that we need is to raise taxes on anybody, and we need to look at what we're doing and making sure that whatever initiatives that we're going to put forward, that we figure out how to pay for them without taxing you, the citizens. I got involved because of a couple of issues, because of CYS, because I think that agency needs to be overhauled, and I also think that COSA needs to be overhauled. It's taking entirely too long to service our senior citizens here in Delaware County. I hope I have your support, and you will be hearing a lot more from me, I'm sure, and I'll have other questions to answer as well. Thank you very much.
My name's Freddie Lesher. I'm from Kyle Wynn, and as far as experience in politics go, I go back about 50 years, and my latest adventure was in my hometown of Kyle Wynn when there were people from the outside the community coming in, and they weren't paying any of their bills, their MOMs, the bills for like the police officers that are retired and things like that, and the electric bill and all that. So I figured, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm going to have a hard time being a Democrat. So I went out and I switched the Republicans over to Democrat, because in my community we needed to start to knock people out, and we ended up winning an election at the primary level because we used the people of the community to knock out what we considered something that wasn't right. Then on comes somebody like Paula Brown, and she had her little faction, and she worked that. But in the midst of all that, as finance chair, I was able to take a town that was $1.5 million in the hole, lower the taxes, and when I finally got the boot by the more outsiders that wanted to line their pockets, I was making $125 a month running the town with a $15,000 a year lawyer. They bring a $100,000 a year lawyer in, and an $85,000 a year borough manager and give the $125 a month guy that ran the town right the boot. Okay, so I know a little bit about politics. The main situation that I want to talk about right now, and I've seen a lot of literature, okay, everybody talked about deprivatizing the prison, and I see the thing about the pipeline. Well, I'm going to tell you two things I know about contracts. The Board of Judges, who Delaware County Council kept their hands clean, like Pontius Pilate, because they know they did everything wrong, voted it in, and you know they got a contract you're not going to be able to get out of. Okay? And that would be an irresponsible task. But what my campaign is calling for is a civil rights investigation into the county courthouse. Everybody that set these kids up, because I had a meeting with the district attorney Whalen and Joe Ryan. When I asked a simple question, how come you don't go after the big-time drug dealers? Ryan gets out of the chair, and he's like picking apples off the tree, easy pickings. They want to fill a private prison up. They said felony system to put 2 felonies on all these kids, and thank you very much.
My name is Sharon Booker, and I'm running for County Council. I currently sit on the executive board of the Democratic State Party. I am also a member of the Democratic State Committee, and I am serving my 2nd term on Sharon Hill Borough Council. As an alliance builder, I've had the opportunity to put together a task force that created policy for the 4th largest city in the United States. I personally wrote a position paper that became the Anti-Graffiti Network and is now the Mural Arts Program of Philadelphia. When I rode the blue wave into Philadelphia, into Sharon Hill, and we turned Sharon Hill blue, I was the #1 vote getter, and some of the accomplishments that we've had in that administration was we brought our trash in-house and saved our residents over $100,000. Our police officers are required to wear body cameras and have diversity training. I took that experience of writing the position paper for the Anti-Graffiti Network and started a art and culture commission in Sharon Hill. I have ample government administration experience. I worked for the Philadelphia Parking Authority, overseeing all the lots and garages for the city of Philadelphia, which meant negotiating contracts. I've also filed remediation claims and have adjudicated up to $30 million. So again, I have leadership ability. I have the ability to win, having been the #1 vote getter in 2 election cycles, and also having won a countywide race is proof positive that I can win. But the thing is not the winning, it's what we do when we do win. There are a number of things that I would like to work on. #1 would be the privatization of the prison, and what I would like to do is work with Jack Stolmeister when he becomes the district attorney, because part of the thing is how we're going to do that, and I think that we would need input from our DA to get that done. One of the other things that I'd like to do, which everyone is talking about but no one is talking about how, is to have a public health administration. What we would need to do is first we would have to get certified by the Center for Disease Control, and that would bring in a plethora of funding. So I'm qualified to serve, and I'm also have the ability to win. So I come here this evening to ask you for your support. Thank you.
Take the shortcut. I'm Bob Raddick from Lansdowne. and I want to thank the various committees that arranged this forum and all of you for coming out this evening. Being a UAW Hall is very special to me because my father was a World War II refugee who emigrated to the U.S. and found work as a machinist at Fisher Body, and he was a proud member of the UAW. So one generation later, to be able to stand before you as a candidate is very special to me personally. Regarding my qualifications for county council, I'd point to both my government and my professional experience. Relating to the former, I spent 10 years in municipal office in Lansdowne. The first 4 years as a borough auditor, deconstructing borough operations, and the last 6 as a member of council setting policy. My last 4 years on Lansdowne Council, I was vice president and chaired the finance committee. And among the accomplishments that we had under my tenure were increasing the general fund balance, which is the borough's cushion, by 250%, migrating from citizen auditors to a professional CPA firm to increase transparency. We stabilized the police and non-uniform pension funds by creating the first investment policy statements and migrated from a 3-man investment management firm to one that was a little more stable and brought a little bit more to the table. We have the borough's finances rated for the first time by an outside rating agency and received the highest rating possible. This enabled us to replace all of the borough's public safety apparatus at a lower cost. And it was also a seal of approval for what we were doing in Lansdowne. It was very gratifying. And then finally, we set fair wage and benefit parameters for our last police contract. By doing this, we were able to avoid arbitration for the first time in 10 years and saved approximately $100,000 in legal costs. And a $7 million budget, that's material. Professionally, I hold an MBA from Pitt, and I have a PA CPA license and various securities licenses as well. I spent the first 25 years of my career in global banking, and at HSBC, I took my division from one that generated $10 million a year in revenue to $220 million. After being downsized, I pivoted into nonprofit work, working as an advocate for the special needs community, helping keep people eligible for government benefits, and also advocating for special education students to ensure that they received their mandated government education. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanu Moss, and I am coming from the borough of Yaden. I too believe that I am equipped to be on Delaware County Council, one from a professional standpoint and one from my current business standpoint. So I'll start with my education. I grew up in Delaware County, born and raised in Yaden for the most part. I've been out there since I was 4 years old. I went through the entire public system proudly and ended up going to Duke University for undergrad. After I graduated from Duke, I went into the financial industry and I worked in New York. For about a year, I was a financial consultant in New York. Got a little bit homesick and moved back to Philadelphia where I continued to do financial consulting. It was interesting. I enjoyed teaching people how to better manage their money, but it wasn't as fulfilling. I think I had more public service oriented. I think I was more public service oriented. So I ended up going to law school. I stayed local. I went to Temple Law School and graduated from there and found that I loved tax. So I ended up staying there for another year and got an LLM in taxation. I practiced a little bit for about maybe 5 to 10 years, roughly, doing pharmaceutical litigation, and that also wasn't too fulfilling. So I met 2 great small practice attorneys, and I started doing more family law and some criminal law, and that is what I'm currently doing now. In addition to still running my pseudo-private practice, I'm also the borough manager in Yaden. So in Yaden, as the borough manager, I am responsible for the HR issues, so managing the staff of approximately 60 people. In addition to that, we are tasked with creating a budget. And I have a finance director that assisted us in creating that budget. With my LLM in taxation and my finance background, we were able to craft the budget for the borough of Yaden. But also in that borough manager position, it also gave us the task of getting involved and figuring out where all the dirt lies. And I've spent most of my time uncovering a lot of things. The borough of Yaden hadn't had an audit in over, I do believe, 2 or 3 years, so we were quite behind. So we immediately came in and started handling those kinds of issues. In addition to that, I'm reviewing a ton of bills and I found some discrepancies. So those are also things that I've had to take to our council as well. So I'm very adept in coming in, and I believe even in going into Delaware County Council, uncovering a lot of things. That's a quick 3 minutes. But in addition to that, one of the reasons why I want to get into Delaware County Council is that through my private practice, I've encountered a lot of issues, and I work intimately with media, so I'm familiar with this. I'm familiar with a lot of the Delaware County politics. And one of the issues you will hear is deprivatizing the prison. A lot of my colleagues will all address that, and it's a very important issue, but I've had the displeasure of actually going into a prison and actually seeing the conditions and actually trying to work with the wardens and actually trying to get my clients work release. And so I believe with my education, my finance, my current managerial experience, and my legal background that I am equipped to be on Delaware County Council, and I request your support. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Womack, and I'm currently from Darby Township, and I also serve as a commissioner for Darby Township. I've been on the board now for 14 years, which is a predominantly ran by Republicans. I have been vice president of that board for 5 years, also served as police commissioner. Now I am currently the president of the board of Darby Township, which I already stated is predominantly run by Republicans. I know how to organize. I know how to change bad government into good government. I know how to unify a community to come together and make changes. That's how we change Darby Township, to make it equal and qualified to all residents, not just some. Darby Township has been run by Republicans for over 50 years. 50 years. And there has always been a disparity. But now we came in, we made changes. We made changes within the staff. We made changes within the budget. We have made changes where it's equal for all residents now. So my professional experience, I worked for the National AFL-CIO. I have worked for labor for over 25 years. I am now currently the assistant to the national president, Richard Trumka. I oversee all the community, religious, and civil rights affairs for the department. I know how to govern. I know what it means to sit at a table and to negotiate, to do arbitration hearings, to organize. I've done those things. I know how to go in to Delaware County and make Delaware County great. I ain't saying make it great again, but to make it great. With your help, and with my skills and ability, I can work along with the other 3 that will go to county, the 3 of us that will go to county council, to work with the 2 that's already there. And we can make that change because we have the map to do it. We have the skills to do those things. When I look at where we are now and where we're going, I see a positive road. This is nothing new to me. I ran for county council back in 2015. So I know what I'm up against. I know how to make that change. And someone says, he know how to win. I've proven that in Darby Township because I've taken on that machine that people said it can't be done. And we've done it. I know what it's going to take to revitalize the government, how to change the prison system, how to get a health care center that will benefit all. We need these changes. I know how to help bring transparency. And with you, I want to go to Delaware County because I want to be your voice. I want to have a community advisory group that will surround us, that we can make this change that I can listen to. Once again, thank you, and I hope I have your support. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Brett Berman. I'm running for County Council, as you probably know at this point. You can probably get access to all of the different stuff about my background. I don't want to go through every single thing. I want to talk about just kind of one thing in particular, and that's healthcare. My experience in healthcare has enabled me to have what you might call a 360-degree perspective on healthcare. And I think that it's essential for us to keep in mind the importance of focusing on this issue in particular, because Delaware County is in the middle of a healthcare crisis right now, and I include the opiate crisis in that. That is a healthcare crisis. And my experience in running a business in Delaware County that focused on making affordable care accessible to as many people as possible and improving their well-being gives me a lot of knowledge, not just about the business side, but about what works in terms of improving people's lives. Moreover, it's something that I've honestly done a lot of research on. I've done a lot of the legwork when it comes to what our county needs, and in particular, what solutions will work. And you might be asking yourself, why would anybody spend all of their free time doing that if they're not already in government or it's not part of their job? The honest answer is, I'm just kind of a geek about policy. I really care about this stuff, and I'm especially passionate about healthcare. What can our health department do? That's a really important question. It can address the health statistics in Delaware County that are especially bad. And pretty much all of them are worse than our surrounding counties, the other collar counties. We have higher rates of smoking. We have higher rates of HIV infection. In fact, Delaware County has the highest rate of new HIV infections in the entire state outside of Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. A health department can address these issues by getting information out to people and by working with local nonprofits that are in the community already and that can't get funding because they don't have grants available to them because there is not a public health department in Delaware County. Now, there are a lot of other important issues in this race, and I don't want to give them short shrift. It's essential that we deprivatize our prison and that we take on and dismantle the Republican machine. I'll get into some of that later, and I'll get into it later. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you a little bit later.
Hello, my name's Christine Ruther. I'm from Nether Providence Township, and I think the question was, what characteristics do we bring that we think qualifies us to be on county council? I think I bring three things. I bring experience, I bring passion, and I bring support. The experience is in a lot of different kinds of experience. I've got personal experience with the county. I was born and raised here. Like Larry, I was born and raised in Havertown. In fact, I went all through elementary school and high school with his brother. I left there, I went to Harvard, I went to UC Berkeley for law school. I ended up migrating back here with my husband who did his residency at CHOP, and we moved back to Delaware County a little over 25 years ago. And I know the county personally because I've run countywide before, like Richard and Sharon. I ran in 2015 for county council. Professionally, I think I'm qualified. I am a tax and business lawyer. I've been a tax and business lawyer for over 30 years. I've done it in big firms, I've done it in-house, I'm doing it in a small firm now. When you're a tax lawyer and you're a business lawyer, what you do is you follow the money. That's literally what I do, and I say that to the clients. When we're working on a deal, when we're trying to work through a controversy, that's what you do, you follow the money, because the money tells the story. So I have that experience. Pro bono, I do a lot of pro bono work. I represented an organization called the Headstrong Foundation in Swarthmore, assisted them in getting a Fair Housing Act accommodation so that cancer patients could, more than 3 unrelated persons, meaning 3 unrelated cancer patients and their caregivers could live in the house. That matter's ongoing. I also represented the Delaware County Coalition for Prison Reform in their efforts to get access to the meetings, to be able to videotape the meetings of the prison board. It's really kind of fun. I have a partner who likes to sue people, and he helped me out, and we persuaded them to change their policy. I also am a board member of Child Guidance Resource Centers, which is a large mental and behavioral health provider. They do much of their work in Delaware County where they're based, but they also serve Montgomery County, Chester County, and Philadelphia. And what's very interesting about that is their largest source of revenue is from the counties because they provide medical assistance. Politically, I've been a township commissioner in Nether Providence. I've been on the planning commission in Nether Providence. I've done multi-municipal planning for the Wallingford-Swarthmore School District. I'm the township's representative on the Central Delaware County Sewer Authority. And I'm also the chair of the Nether Providence Democrats. So I know what it takes to turn a town. We flipped our town in 2017. I chaired Joanne Phillips' campaign for controller, and I did a lot of the research for our 2017 candidates. I think all of that qualifies me to be on county council. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Monica Taylor, and I'm running for county council. So to answer the question, I think that some of the things that make me qualify for this to run for county council. First, I'll talk about kind of political. And so currently I sit on the Upper Darby School Board. And on the school board, I represent the Finance and Operations Committee, so I'm the co-chair for the Finance and Operations Committee. And I also represent the school district on the Delaware County Intermediate Unit's Board of Directors. As a co-chair of the Finance and Operations Committee, I am responsible for, well, me and my counterpart, Ed Brown, we work on the school district's budget, which is the second largest budget in the county at $200 million. We oversee our contracts, we oversee our facilities improvements. We also oversee our hiring in the district. On the Delaware County Intermediate Unit Board, I also do the same thing. So we oversee all the contracts, we oversee any new buildings, we oversee hiring of our administrative staff. I was on the Upper Darby School Board group that flipped the Upper Darby School District for the first time, flipping the Upper Darby School District from Republican run to Democratic run. And I ran side by side with Brian and Kevin in the 2017 election. And one of the initiatives that I have been focusing on at the school district level is jobs and trying to create a jobs pipeline for our students and our students who are graduating and going directly into the workforce. So in Upper Darby, we have about 33% of our students who graduate, and when they graduate, they go right into the workforce, and the majority of them are getting retail jobs. And so one of my initiatives has been to reach out to the businesses and the building trades and the technology businesses in the city and other corporations that have jobs where our students will be able to get a family-sustaining wage, but they don't have to have a bachelor's degree and they don't need to go to college for that. And so that's been one of my big initiatives in trying to build that pipeline in the district for our students and figuring out how we get them the skills that they need in the district, and then how we get them into the jobs that are out there. For me, professionally, I have a PhD from the University of Pittsburgh, and I currently run an undergraduate program at the University of Sciences. And my students are going into physical therapy, occupational therapy, or physician assistants. And so my specialty is actually cardiovascular medicine. That's what my PhD is in. So thank you very much, and I think my time is up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Nelson, and I'm going to tell you why I'm your candidate. I'm a proud Chester resident, and I'm qualified to be on county council because I spent my whole life defying statistics. I'm a victim of a single-parent household. I'm a proud graduate of Chester Upland School District from first grade all the way up to graduating from Chester High School. I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I served 10 years proudly in the uniform. on active duty. I'm a Afghanistan and Iraqi veteran. And I also know that less than 20% of the veteran population is even remotely involved in public service, and is even less represented up until recently on Congress and other committees. So after my time in the Marine Corps, I immediately went to working for the Department of Veteran Affairs. In that role, I was the administrative officer. And as the administrative officer for all of the national cemeteries in the region, I ran and managed the budget for purchasing. In that experience, I was able to learn how federal dollars work as well as state dollars work. We balanced the budget for 5 cemeteries. The total budget totaled in, on average, from $4 to $7 million per year, and it would often increase as projects move forward. I got experience in contracting, and my experience of contracting was more of an active leadership role. We did everything from statements of work all the way up to bidding and awarding the contracts, and then monitoring them and ensuring that the contractors are maintaining what they need to maintain as far as staying compliant. I currently work with Chanu at Yaden Borough on municipal solutions. So not only do I have experience on federal government and dealing with state dollars, but I also have experience on a municipal level that affects everybody in this room here. My professional background, I have an MBA from Temple, and my undergrad was from Penn State. I understand the way money, financials work. I understand the business community. I actually teach at Hartman College. I'm an adjunct professor. I've been doing that now for about a year. And in that role, I have the direct opportunity to mold the young minds of the future that are going to make the decisions. I really enjoy doing that. I have a lifetime of community service. I teach financial classes at churches around the community. I consult with local entrepreneurs in the community. I'm very invested in the community. I'm a homeowner. I could have gone anywhere in the world when I got out of the Marine Corps, but I chose to come back home in Delaware County. I took my time and I learned everything I needed to learn to be able to be qualified now to stand here and say this for you today. I've been fighting all my life, and I'm going to continue to fight and defy the odds so that we can see a better Delaware County. Thank you.
Of who everyone is. Our second question is, if you are elected, what is your plan to take us from a history of 150 years of machine government to a government that we can all be proud of? And our first speaker will be Sharon Booker.
Diversity is key. We need to diversify this county in every possible way. And the beginning of that would be to overhaul the system, the pay-to-play system at the county level, which is first with the negotiation of contracts and the awarding of the bid process. We need to revamp the entire process, and in doing that, we also need to include a clause for minority businesses to be able to get a portion of those bids. We also need, again, to deprivatize the prison, and I would want to work with Jack, once he's elected, to think about ways that we can do that. And some of what we can do is use the board that we had, that he has, that the work that he's doing to get those statistics together to figure out how we can break that contract. Any contract can be broken. You just gotta know what to do and how. And I think that part of doing that is the work that Jack is doing right now, and coordinate that with an effort to really find a way to break that contract. As far as the health department is concerned, I've already said that the first thing that I would want to do is get it certified by the Center for Disease Control, so that we would be eligible for all the plethora of grants and funding that we could get at the state level and at the federal level, but also looking at, again, working with Jack to look at our budget, because over 60% of the budget goes to criminal justice, while only 24% goes to social services. And of that 24%, 80% goes to Fair Acres. So I would want to look at ways that we could really dissect that budget and find ways to get money from the budget that's underutilized to fund the health department. Creating an equitable workforce at the county level. There's about 3,200 jobs at the county level, and who knows how these jobs are formulated? Who knows what the hiring process is? We would need to overhaul that whole system. We would have to have an HR department. We would need to post those jobs, put them in the paper, put them online, really go in to do like a corporation does. Go in, look at every department, look at how, what we could do to streamline those departments and figure out who's doing what and how we can make it more equitable for everybody involved. And that's some of the things that I'd like to do. Thank you.
All right. Richard Womack is next.
Well, one of the things I see that we would first have to do, I would go in and try to figure out where all the bodies are hidden. Because I know over the years, they have hidden a lot of things, and we need to go in, reconstruct a whole lot of those departments. We want to bring transparency. I want everyone to know who's getting the job bids. Those job bids should be out online. It should be a fair contract should be given out. We need to have a fair system that works for everyone and make sure that we force that system. Also, having said that, when I look at the wages of some of the salaries, we need to look at those salaries because we're one of the largest counties in the state of Pennsylvania. And when I look at what the sheriffs are making, it's sad. And if you're not being paid what you deserve, you're not going to do the job that we want them to do. And we look at some of them high salaries, and I see that some of that management was making. The disparity is really, really low compared to what they're making. I would definitely overhaul the salaries and take a look at it. The other thing I would like to see happen is to try to build a system, work with the unions. The context I had with the unions, with the building trades, there's no reason why the county cannot work with the building trades and other unions to build an apprenticeship program for our county. We need that. You talk about crime, but we need a place where for our young people to go. If we invest in our communities, when we invest in our young people, you'll probably see the crime rates go down. And we can do that. The other thing I would like to see happen is we have to deprivatize the prison. When you privatize a prison and they do it for gain, it's basically what they're doing it for. Because we know who's profiting off that prison. Look at the health conditions inside that prison. It's a shame. I had the opportunity to go through there and I looked at it. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. We need to take that back. Even though people had committed crimes, they deserve to at least have a place that's decent to lay their head. Also, I want to have a advisory committee because you are the eyes and the ears. You know what needs to be done in the county. We need some professionals around us to say, hey, what about this and what about that? And I would love to have you to be my eyes and ears and to help me, to help you and to help your communities. Because we know right now that some of the resources are only going to certain areas. I want to make sure those resources are being distributed among all communities because the county will work better when everybody's benefiting from it. Also, we need to figure out what incentives that we can bring to businesses as far as hiring more people in our community and that they will spend more into our community. That would help our environment so we don't have to raise taxes. The more you spend in, the more it comes in, the less we have to raise taxes. Thank you, thank you.
Anthony Moore.
I had to put on my glasses glasses and bring my notes up for me, so I have to put on my glasses. So listen, the short answer to that question is simply this. Don't do what the Republicans did. That's the short answer. And okay, so what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is on county council, we shouldn't be giving out no bid contracts to construction companies and others just because they're our friends, just because we know who they are, just because it's their time. I remember when I first got to the city of Chester 6 years ago, one of the first things that we saw was that there was a parking lot that was being built, and they were going to award this contract, a $200,000 contract to build a parking lot. Now, it doesn't take $200,000 on a small parking lot to build a parking lot, but that's what the Republicans were doing. We don't need to do things like that. Also, the cronyism jobs, the pay to play. We've got to make sure that we don't do things like that, giving jobs to our friends or jobs to people without regard for their qualifications for that job. I remember this issue that I often mention about CYS. When I spoke to the director of CYS about the issue that we were having with CYS, the director said, well, you know what, I really don't know that much about, he was over Health and Human Services. He said, I really don't know that much about CYS. I really depend on the person that's running CYS to tell me what's going on in the agency. That's absolutely unacceptable. We shouldn't be doing things like that either. We need to make sure that when we're doing things around the county, that we don't do it at the detriment of other municipalities. In Chester right now, we have a soccer stadium where the land was sold for $10 by the Republican administration and to a county organization, and then they built this $600 million stadium, but because the city doesn't own the property that the stadium sits on, the city of Chester will never ever see any kind of tax revenue from that soccer stadium. And to add insult to injury, a city that is under Act 47 status, which is financially distressed by the state, they put the city of Chester on the hook for a $13.9 million loan to help pay for that soccer stadium. That's one thing the county council can avoid doing. We can make sure that when we're doing things, we don't do it to the detriment of other municipalities just because they don't happen to be of the same party persuasion as we are. That's what we can do. Another thing we can make sure is that the minutes are easily accessible, that people can see the minutes of the council meetings. I'd like to see it on the public access television station for my liking. That way we can see what's going on. We can hear about what county council is deciding, what they're talking about, and then make our own decisions. We don't have to guess. We don't have to look at the Daily Times. Some of us say, well, the Daily Times is not telling us the truth. Some people feel that way. We can see those meetings for ourselves. We need to have things like that. I have a lot more notes in front of me. 3 minutes is not enough time, but hopefully I will get a chance to talk to you afterwards. Thank you very much.
In some ways, this is the most important issue that we're facing. Not because it has the biggest impact necessarily on people's lives, but because all of our reforms ultimately rest on good government. And having a good government is about having a government that is transparent and accountable. Now, ultimately, from day one, we're going to have to start delivering results. There's no other way to put it. We've got to stop giving grants to right-wing slush funds, which happens all the time. We've got to stop the no-show jobs that are draining our county's budget. This is just wrong and wasteful. We've got to stop insider deals and all of the secrecy. We need to do things like putting our campaign finance filings online. Those are things that we can do quickly, but it is going to take time. The Republicans have been at this for 150 years, and they've been working at it full-time for 150 years. It will not take that long to get rid of it, but we also can't just wave a magic wand to get rid of it too. We're going to have to do a lot of work to dig up those bodies that someone mentioned earlier and get rid of those contracts. That's going to take a lot of time, and I have committed to taking a leave of absence from my job to work full-time at county council, which is technically only a part-time position, until our county is on sounder footing. Now, one thing that that makes me a good candidate in that respect is that I've already done a lot of the legwork. on that with the 2017 campaign. I, along with Bonnie Friedman, who isn't here, did the pay-to-play research for that campaign. I also researched how, for instance, the executives who are getting these ridiculously high salaries where the people at the bottom are barely getting enough to survive are kicking back a lot of that salary to the Republican Party. I don't think that the campaign's website is still up, but if it is, you can find it there. One thing I am concerned about, though, is just in general, that success that we had in 2017, that there are some people who think that we can't lose in 2019 because of it. And what that reminds me of is, how Hillary Clinton's team thought that she couldn't lose in 2016 either. And obviously, that wasn't the case. We should win, but we could lose. And it's going to take people who are willing to knock doors, raise money, but also craft policy that is compelling and that can convince people that Democrats are not coming in to raise your taxes, that we are not going to raise taxes, we may even lower them, and that is not just an empty promise. We can do it with these reforms that are costing the county a ton of money and fund things like our health department. I've committed to doing all this stuff for the campaign. I've already put in a lot of the legwork, as I said, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
My name's Fred Lesher. I'm from Caldwell, and I'm really glad to be with all these folks because it seems like they all got a lot of talent at one thing or another. A lot of them have higher educations. My education was Darby Caldwell High School, and I in the private business, but I got most of my education on the street. Okay, and sometimes that's good, but sometimes you need a PhD at something. But my main goal here is that is to keep the Democratic Party rolling. And from what I see, the biggest seat that Delaware County needs to win is the district attorney's office, because that's where all the easy picking started with the line to fill the prison up with customers. Because when you go out and you set somebody up for a nickel bag of pie and bring a Radnor police officer to a town like Darby, and the preliminary hearings the bail sentence in Radnor and the preliminary hearings in 252, if you can accept taking a little black kid out of Darby and having his preliminary hearing in a rich white neighborhood, you can raise your hand if you accept that. I don't accept that. What I do accept is that, it all had to do with the private prison, and they did everything they could to keep their hands clean and to give that private prison company a contract. But what I'm telling you, what you got to do now is you got to follow the money. And the money goes from the streets, from the poor kids, the mentally ill, up to that prison where it's packed, and the conditions are there where it's packed. But, I'm going to sit down. I'm glad everybody's here. Everybody's heading in the right direction, but the right direction now is there needs to be an investigation into that whole system of giving these kids felonies. Everybody talks about jobs. How are you going to get a job with felonies? I don't care if they got checked the box, they have University of Pennsylvania, President Donald Trump. Okay, say it. You're not going to get a job, okay, you're done. And all you got to do is listen to Martin Luther King. I got a quote from him about hope. They took hope out of thousands of kids in this community, many of them minority, not all of them, for nothing, to fill a private prison so people could get paid. They get paid when they go, and they get paid when they're coming, because everybody gets a bill from the amount of time that you're in that prison. And if you think you can pay that bill with 2 felonies on you, because that's how they got you out of prison, you got another thing coming.
My name's Larry Arana, and I think it's not a crime to be poor, but I think it is a crime that in 2019, Delaware County has about 27% of their prison population They are simply because they cannot afford bail. This is an unconstitutional discrimination against the poor. If we eliminated bail for those nonviolent first offenders, this would not only be the fair thing to do, but it would save the taxpayers millions of dollars. It is not a crime to be mentally ill, but I think it is a crime that in 2019, Delaware County is warehousing the mentally ill in their county prison and not providing them with the treatment they desperately need. We've had prisoners commit suicide in that prisoners, and we've had an awful lot of prisoners leave that prison and become immediately homeless. It is not a crime to suffer from the disease of substance use disorder, but it is a crime that in 2019, Delaware County is spending most of its money budgeted to address the opioid crisis on prosecuting addicts as criminals. It is a crime that we do not provide medical best practices to those suffering from substance use disorder in Delaware County. It is not a crime to be a member of the very large group of Americans referred to as the working poor, but I think it is a crime that in Delaware County, most of our workers do not earn a living wage. How would you like to go to college, get your degree, incur all that debt, and then get a job for slightly over the minimum wage as a social worker, or as a probation officer, or working in the sheriff's department? What kind of Democrats are we if we cannot provide our workers in Delaware County with a living wage? What kind of Democrats are we if we cannot enforce that our contractors pay their workers a living wage, and then we can make a difference in this great big country full of the working poor? Thank you very much.
Well, if elected, my goal is to use the county's governmental apparatus to provide opportunities for all constituents, particularly the ones that have been ignored and marginalized for the past 150 years by Republican administrations. To begin with, I'd like to see a review and expansion of services that are provided through the intermediate unit, particularly as these young people transition into adulthood. Let's invest in our most fragile citizens and give them the opportunity to self-actualize. I'd like to see the county use its tax-exempt borrowing base to create an investment pool